If you ever find yourself in the late medieval period and you are in need of food and drink, you better find yourself an inn, tavern, or alehouse. Now, all three of those are not exactly synonymous, and we'll talk about how they're different a little bit later. But in general, you should be able to go to any of them and get a drink and probably some food.
Did you know that people in the Middle Ages sometimes boiled eggs in almond milk? With saffron? Strange as it sounds, medieval cuisine was full of surprising combinations. Dishes that blurred the line between sweet and savory, humble and extravagant. Today, we're diving into 10 forgotten recipes from the medieval kitchen. Meals that once graced noble banquets and monastic tables, but which have vanished from the modern plate. Some might just be weird. Others? Honestly, they need to make a comeback. The culinary world of the Middle Ages was anything but bland. Spices from the East, local herbs, and ingenious preservation methods created a cuisine that was both practical and poetic. But over the centuries, changing tastes, global trade, and industrialization erased many of these once popular recipes. What did we lose? And what might be worth reviving? These are 10 dishes that history forgot, but your taste buds might just remember. First, manger, the chicken rice porridge of kings. In the royal courts of medieval Europe, one dish symbolized refinement above all, manger. Despite the name sounding like a dessert, this was a savory and slightly sweet porridge made from shredded chicken, rice, almond milk, and sugar. Its soft texture and delicate flavor made it a favorite not only among nobles, but also for the sick or recovering, seen as both gentle on the stomach and nourishing to the soul. It was a dish of contrasts, exotic and comforting, white and golden. The rice gave body, the almond milk gave richness, and a touch of sugar made it feel luxurious. Often, it was perfumed with rosewater or sprinkled with cinnamon. Imagine a medieval risotto crossed with a dessert rice pudding, but somehow neither and both. Over time, manger lost its place at the table. As culinary tastes grew more divided, savory on one side, sweet on the other, it no longer fit. But in an age of fusion cuisine and dietary inclusivity, a gluten-free, dairy-free dish that's this historic and flavorful? Surely it deserves another moment in the spotlight. But if you think that was unusual, wait until you hear what came next, because the next dish actually caused the death of a king. 2. Lamprey pie, a royal delicacy lost to time. There was a time when receiving a lamprey pie wasn't just a treat, it was a royal gesture. These strange eel-like fish were prized in medieval England, to the point that monarchs expected them as tribute. King Henry I, it said, even died after indulging in one too many. The pie itself was no simple fisherman's snack. The lampreys were skinned and simmered in a spiced broth of wine, vinegar, and saffron. Then they were encased in a rich pastry and baked until golden. Cloves and pepper gave the dish heat, while the acidity of the vinegar balanced the oily richness of the fish. It faded from tables as lampreys became harder to source and less palatable to modern eyes. Their prehistoric appearance didn't help. But today, with renewed interest in sustainable underused species, could lamprey pie be reimagined as the delicacy it once was? The next dish may not have royal associations, but it packs a punch of garlic strong enough to wake the medieval dead. 3. Garlic tart, the medieval answer to quiche. In the warm kitchens of medieval France and Catalonia, the sharp aroma of garlic once signaled comfort, but not in sauces or pastes. It was the star of the dish, tarte d'al, or garlic tart. Dozens of cloves were blanched, boiled briefly to mellow their bite, then mashed and blended with eggs, herbs, and local cheese. Poured into a simple pastry shell and baked, it emerged bubbling, golden, and fragrant, rich, rustic, and deeply savory. Over time, the upper classes turned away from garlic. It came to be associated with peasants and laborers and faded from noble menus. But today, as we embrace bold flavors and farm-to-table cooking, a garlic tart like this, honest, hearty, and full of medieval soul, might just be the quiche we didn't know we were missing. And if savory tarts surprise you, just wait until we stir raisins into a fish stew. Yes, really. 4. Bruette of Almayne, a sweet-savory stew from Lent's kitchen. In the cold, fasting months of Lent, when meat was forbidden, cooks had to get creative. One result was Bruette of Almayne, a rich, warming stew of white fish, raisins, almond milk, ginger, and sugar. It sounds unusual to modern ears, but to medieval palates, this was deeply satisfying. The sweetness of dried fruit paired with the creamy almond broth, while ginger added warmth. Served with crusty bread, it was both luxurious and pious. As religious observance declined and meat became a year-round staple, dishes like this lost their place. But for those seeking new plant-based and dairy-free meals, or simply curious about pre-modern flavor profiles, Bruette of Almayne offers a window into a very different way of thinking about food. But before you swear off medieval sweets forever, you'll want to see what they did with eggs. 5. Golden eggs, brunch medieval style. Imagine peeling a hard-boiled egg only to simmer it again, this time in almond milk and saffron. The result? A glowing yellow orb that smells faintly of sweetness and spice. In the late medieval courts of France and Burgundy, golden eggs were a delicate luxury. They weren't just beautiful, they were symbolic. Yellow was the color of light, of wealth, of the divine. And the use of saffron, among the most expensive spices in the world, made it a clear display of status. They fell from favor as cooking grew more practical, more streamlined. But as brunch culture thrives and food aesthetics dominate social media, isn't it time to revive this golden marvel? A medieval dish that's simple, elegant, and sure to spark conversation. The next dish tells an even richer story, one where meat, fruit, and spice come together in a single unexpected slice. 6. Leche Lombard, a spiced slice of meat and fruit. Travelers in medieval Europe might have encountered a peculiar dish at noble tables. Leche Lombard, named for Lombardy, but beloved across the continent. It was, in essence, a spiced meat terrine, minced pork or beef blended with raisins, almonds, and wine, molded into a loaf and sliced cold. Imagine fruitcake meets meatloaf, with the sweetness of currants and the punch of mace and black pepper. Served at banquets as a first course or a festive snack, it embodied the medieval love of combining sweet with savory. Today, it might seem strange, but in a world of charcuterie boards and sweet-savory pairings, Leche Lombard could be a hit, an appetizer that tells a story, slice by slice. But the real secret of the medieval kitchen? How even the poorest gardens could yield something utterly extraordinary. 7. Pottage of herbs and grapes, a peasant's garden in a bowl. While the nobility feasted, peasants and monks turned to what they could grow. One result was a humble but hearty dish, herb and grape pottage. This thick stew combined onions, leeks, and garden herbs with a handful of fresh grapes. Yes, grapes. Cooked slowly with bread or oats for thickening, it was sweet, earthy, and nourishing. A snapshot of seasonal living, long before it became trendy. As prosperity spread and meat became central to most meals, simple plant-based stews lost favor. But in a world seeking climate-conscious eating and culinary rediscovery, this medieval vegan dish might just be the future hidden in the past. And if you think that was humble, the next dish is anything but. In fact, it was designed to make jaws drop, literally. 8. Cockentrice, the feast beast. No dish quite captures medieval theatricality like the Cockentrice. Created purely for spectacle, it was made by sewing the front half of a pig to the back half of a capon, then roasting the whole thing as one animal. Often gilded with gold leaf and egg yolk, it would be paraded into the feast hall to gasps and laughter. It wasn't about flavor, it was about status, imagination, and a bit of dark humor. Understandably, it disappeared with time. Food safety, modern tastes, and the cost of such pageantry ended its reign. But in an age of food festivals and historical reenactments, wouldn't you love to see a Cockentrice make a guest appearance? Things calm down a bit after that, with a warm dish from the Welsh hills that's perfect for a rainy evening. 9. Cawl Pobi. Baked cheese from the hills of Wales high in the hills of medieval Wales. People gathered around hearths to enjoy Cawl Pobi, a baked cheese dish enriched with herbs and beer. Cheese was melted slowly, often over bread, with mustard or leeks stirred in for extra kick. It was the original pub food, comforting, filling, and deeply local. But as standardized cheese sauces took over modern menus, Cawl Pobi quietly disappeared. Now with renewed love for regional identity and rustic cuisine, this forgotten dish feels surprisingly current. Pair it with a dark ale and crusty bread, and you've got a recipe worthy of revival. But before we finish, there's one more dish, and it may just be the most elegant of them all. A dessert born from wine. 10th, Hippocras jelly, a medieval cocktail. You could eat at the end of many grand medieval feasts, long after the roast peacocks and game pies had vanished. Guests were served something extraordinary. Not a tart, not a cake, but a shimmering spiced jelly made from red wine. This was Hippocras jelly, a dessert formed from the famous medieval drink Hippocras, wine infused with clove, cinnamon, and honey. Mixed with gelatin and poured into delicate molds, it was both a digestive and a showpiece. As sugar-heavy pastries took over dessert tables, wine jellies faded into obscurity. But today, with a love for nostalgic cocktails and elegant simplicity, Hippocras jelly might just be ready for its renaissance. Because who wouldn't want to end a dinner with a dessert that tastes like mulled wine in solid form? And just like that, our journey through forgotten feasts comes to an end. But your appetite for medieval wonders has only just begun. From garlic tarts to gilded poultry beasts, the medieval kitchen was full of invention, contrast, and bold flavor. These dishes may seem strange now, but they tell stories of culture, class, and creativity that still resonate today. Which of these forgotten feasts would you dare to try? Let us know in the comments, and if you're hungry for more medieval history, subscribe for weekly dives into the food, life, and legends of the past.